Hey everybody, and welcome to this edition of rapidMATION Live. If you've not joined us before on rapidMATION Live, this is the channel where we stream all things intelligent automation. And we stream that across two different channels, and that's LinkedIn Live and YouTube Live. And in these sessions, we talk about things across four different categories, and that could be interviews with industry experts, it could be demos, it could be deep dives, or the ability for you, the audience, to ask a question. And the topics that we cover are wide and varied, and it ranges from robotic process automation to artificial intelligence to digital process automation and so much more. But most importantly, if you want to stay up to date with all things intelligent automation, make sure you head across to go.rapidmation.com/live and make sure you follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you know when we go live with these intelligent automation streams. So on to today's session. Today, we're going to be talking about the UiPath Marketplace Components that we've just created for the Nintex and the K2 platform. And this falls under the demo category, and the topics are robotic process automation and digital process automation. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take you through a demo of some of these components in action. We're going to show you how you can easily use these components to integrate with either the Nintex or K2 platforms directly from UiPath. So just set a bit of context, just in case you've not heard of rapidMATION before. Here at rapidMATION, we're all about something called intelligent automation. And what that means is that we have different tools that we use in our intelligent automation toolbox. And one of the core robotic process automation platforms and the market leader, and the one that we specialize in, is a platform called UiPath. But sometimes in the world of robotic process automation, we may need to loop human users into these conversations. And in those scenarios, we use two digital process automation platforms. One is called Nintex and the other is called K2. And both the K2 and Nintex platforms are, again, worldwide market leaders in the digital process automation space. So if you've not heard of them before, an easy way to break it down is if you want to route workflows between human users and do some very advanced human workflow routing, the Nintex and K2 platforms are great platforms to use in this space. And again, if we can combine that with the power of UiPath robotic process automation software bots, that allows us to put together a really great end-to-end intelligent automation process. Okay, so what we've done is we've created some seamless integration components that allow us to call Nintex and K2 workflows from a UiPath process. If you wanted to go check out these different activity packs, head over to marketplace.uipath.com and search for rapidMATION, and you'll be able to see the rapidMATION for Nintex and rapidMATION for K2 activity packs. All right, just having a quick look at what the listings look like. If you head across to the Nintex one, you'll be able to see a little bit of a walkthrough about what these activity packs look like and what they do. And in the Nintex space, what we've done is we've allowed you to easily integrate with the Nintex and UiPath platforms. The Nintex activity packs allows you to do things like define a Nintex scope. And what that means is we can actually hook you up to your specific Nintex environment. And once we know which Nintex environment we're going to be connecting to, we can do things like start a Nintex workflow or get Nintex tasks, or even complete Nintex tasks directly from the UiPath platform. Very similarly for the K2 integration, head over to the rapidMATION for K2 listing. And again, you'll be able to have a little walkthrough of everything that's available. And very similar to the Nintex activity packs, the K2 activity packs allows you to connect to either a K2.5, which is an on-premise K2 environment, or alternatively a K2 cloud environment. And you can do things like start K2 workflows, get K2 tasks, or even finish K2 server events directly from the UiPath platform. Okay, so let's go see what this looks like in action. And the first little demo that I'm going to show you is we're going to use a UiPath software bot to go through and automatically perform some IT systems checks. It's a very common pattern that we implement for some of our UiPath customers. And in this example, what we're going to do is we're going to send off a little software bot to wake up every minute, every hour, every day, or even at a specific time. And that little software bot's going to go check and ping different systems for us to make sure that they're there and up and running. And in this example, we're going to go hit a system called system.rapidMATION.com. And if that system appears to be up and running fine, then we're not going to do anything and we're not going to loop a human user into this. But if there's something that appears to be wrong, like in this screen grab, it appears that there's a 404 error, what we're going to do is we're going to tell our UiPath software bot to automatically go and kick off a K2 process. And this K2 process is going to assign a task to a human user. And in this example, it's going to let them know that they've got a task via an email notification. But you could send them a text message notification, a mobile push notification on their device. Really, there's a whole heap of different ways you can notify a human user that they need to go and do something. And in this example, the human user could actually even reply directly back to this email and say that it's been resolved or to retry this process. But in addition to that, we've surfaced up a little K2 smart form. And on this K2 smart form, we're going to provide this human user the details of what system has failed and some instructions on what they need to do. And then they're going to be able to do one of two things. They're going to be able to mark this as resolved, or alternatively, they're going to go through and they're going to say that this workflow process should be retried and we should go recheck if that system is up and running. Let's have a look at what the K2 process looks like. So for those of you who may not be familiar with K2, there's a whole lot of different things that you can drag and drop onto the design canvas here. I've kept this process very, very simple. And what I've done here is I've come through and dragged and dropped something called a client event on here. And what that means, the client event means I need to loop or assign a task to a human user. So here I've provided them some details and I said to them that they need to check the status of the following system and they can make one or two or perform one of two actions on this process. They can either say that it's resolved, and in that case, it'll come down here, it'll end the process, or they could go through and they could retry this process. Okay, now what I can do here is I can tell them how they're going to interact with this specific task. And in this example, I've connected it into a K2 smart form and presented the user with some details on that smart form. And in this case, I've kept it again pretty simple, and I've said just assign a task to my user called Sean, but you can do some pretty complex human workflow routing using the K2 platform. Here I've gone through and I've customized the notification to allow Sean to see the details of the task, and I've allowed him to action the task directly from the email. And in addition to that, I could go through and I could add some pretty complex kind of human workflow routing rules. So maybe if I need to assign it to a group of users, or maybe if 3 or 5 users need to approve it before we move on, there's a whole heap of those nice things that we can do. I can go through, and now that I'm in the human workflow world, I can do things called escalations. And escalations could be an email reminder if Sean hasn't completed this task in a timely manner. Or perhaps I want to pick up that task after a certain amount of time and redirect it to Sean's manager. There's a whole lot of this great workflow routing we can do depending on what we configure here. In addition to that, I can set things like deadlines on when this absolutely has to be done, so I can escalate that task and make sure that this human user has performed this piece of work in a timely manner. Okay, so let's go have a look at what this looks like and how I'm going to call that process from my UiPath environment. So if I come across to my UiPath Studio, once I've added the activity packs, you'll see that they get added under the rapidMATION kind of category, and there's one for K2 and there's one for Nintex. So in this example, my little UiPath software bot, it wakes up on a given schedule, and it's going to go open up system.rapidMATION.com, and it's going to go check if that system is up and running. And if we get back a status message from that system that's a 404 error message, what we're going to go do then is we're going to go kick off a human workflow process and loop a human into this automation. Of course, if the system is just up and running and there's no need to do that, then all we're going to do is we're just going to carry on, and that little UiPath robot will wake up again when needed and carry on pinging and checking if that system is available. So in this example, just to show you in the demo, if we do need to loop a human in, what I've done is I've just put in a little input dialog, and I've asked the human user to say, do they want to kick off a K2 or a Nintex process? So if it's a K2 process, let me show you what that looks like. So in this example, what I've done here is I've started with a K2 scope. And what this allows me to do, it allows me to go through and configure which K2 environment I'd like to go and connect to. And once I've defined that scope, then I can go do things like start a workflow process and pass parameters in, or set the folio or the priority or which workflow I want to kick off. And then what I'm going to go do is that will go through and start off that K2 process from my side. Okay, so let's go have a look at what this looks like in action. So let me push play on this specific workflow process. And what we'll see is as soon as my little UiPath software bot wakes up, we'll see a screen that opens up. And the first thing that we can see, it's trying to go and actually access system.rapidMATION.com. Now, in this instance, we can see it looks like it's hit an error. So what's happened inside our workflow process is it's come up here and it's asked me, well, hey, Sean, just for the sake of the demo, what type of workflow do you want to kick off? So I'm going to go through and I'm going to say that I would like to kick off a K2 process. And when I kick off this K2 process, what we'll see is that the little UiPath software bot uses our integration, and I can see down the bottom here that it's kicked off that K2 process for me. So let's go have a look at how I've been notified that I have a K2 task. So the first thing that's come up in my mailbox is I've been assigned a task from the K2 system, and K2 sent me an email to say, hey, Sean, you've got a task. You can either click on this link to open up this task and action it, or alternatively, you can simply reply back to this email with one of the actions, resolved or retry to action this specific task. Now, in this instance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to head across to something called the K2 workspace. And in the K2 workspace is an area where human users come to see which tasks they have and what work they might need to do. And in this example, I'm going to open up my little inbox, and here I can see that there is a nice new task that's arrived on my K2 task list. This is a K2 smart form where I can present a whole lot of different information to this user on this specific task. And in this example, I'm just going to ask them to action the task by either saying that this is resolved or that they should retry the process. Now, what you can do inside the K2 world is you can open up something called a view flow diagram. And this is just a graphical representation of the process and where I am in the process. Now, you can see that this is color-coded. So you can see that there's a blue border around this box, which means that's where I am. So I'm currently at the review system failure step. And you can see all the other lines are gray, which means I haven't touched any part of that process. Now, if I wanted to go and actually see which user has it and all the details of that, I can come in here and I can see that the review system failure is currently with Sean, and he's had it at this stage for 1 minute and 46 seconds. So in this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and let's pretend that I've investigated that issue, and I've gone through and marked it as resolved because I've brought that system back up online. So you can see here that it tells me that the task has been actioned successfully. If I come in here and I refresh it, you'll notice that the task has dropped off of my work list. But in addition to that, we can actually follow the progress of this workflow using the K2 view flow diagram. And this is going to change colors as soon as it goes through and actions that task. So here you can see it's been outlined in green, and we followed down this step here, and we've come to the end stage of this specific workflow process. Okay, so that's just a little bit of an example of how we can use the rapidMATION for K2 Activity Pack to integrate UiPath and the K2 platforms. Okay, so next up, let's play that same scenario, but let's go use the Nintex platform. So exact same scenario, my little UiPath software bot's going to attempt to see if system.rapidmation.com is up and running. Should it be up and running? That's all good. We're going to just let it sleep and wake up again when needed. But if it's not up and running, we're going to then use the rapidMATION for Nintex Activity Pack to start off a Nintex workflow process. And exactly in the same way, what we're going to do is we're going to assign a task to a human user to review that specific item, and the user can then go through and either open up a form to interact with that task. They can reply to that email directly with resolved or retry. But in this instance, I'm going to show you some of the other capability that we've created for the Nintex platform. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to automatically use UiPath to go and call my Nintex tasks, get a list of all of the tasks that I've got on the Nintex platform, and then I'm going to get our little UiPath robot to automatically complete a task in the Nintex world. So let's go have a look at what that might look like. Okay, so in exactly the same way, we come down, we get our robot to open up that platform. And in this example, if we select Nintex, what I'm going to go do is I'm going to open up this or start this Nintex workflow process. So again, what I've done in this example is I've got a Nintex scope. So this is where I can tell my UiPath robot which Nintex server to go and actually call. And once I've done that, I can then go through and I can start a workflow process. I can inject some data into that process when I start it. it, and I'm just going to go call my human in the loop process. But once I've done that, I'm actually going to use some of the new capabilities to go through and loop through the Nintex task list and go get any tasks that are in an active status. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop through each of those tasks, and I'm going to go through and figure out what the default outcome is. So whether that be retry or resolve, and I'm automatically going to go action that task directly from my UiPath software bot. So a pretty cool scenario just to show how we can interact with Nintex tasks directly from the UiPath platform. Okay, so let's go have a look at what that looks like in action. So again, I'm just going to run this from the UiPath Studio. And what we'll see is we'll see that web page open up. And again, in this example, the system appears to be down. So what it's going to go ask me, it's going to say, well, hey, Sean, how would you like to notify a human user? And in this example, I'm going to go across and use Nintex. Now, what we'll see here is if I open up my little UiPath Studio here, we'll see that the bot has automatically kicked off a Nintex process for me. It started a task, and you can see here it's actually opened up that task, it's marked it as resolved, and it's then gone through and completed that process. So again, just a really cool way to show you the rapidMATION for Nintex Activity Pack in action. And this shows you how straight from your UiPath environment, you can kick off either a K2 or a Nintex Workflow process, loop humans into the conversation, and then do things like interact with those task lists and automatically action those tasks directly from the UiPath platform. Okay, well, I hope you found today's session useful, and we're going to follow this session up with a deep dive session. And in our deep dive session, we're going to get Wayne Acton, who's the rapidMATION automation architect, and he's going to walk us through configuring the UiPath Marketplace components for both Nintex and K2, so you have a great understanding of how easy it is to get that up and running and integrate those two platforms. So to make sure you get notified of when we're going to go live, head over to go.rapidmation.com/live, hit that subscription bell. Make sure you follow us on LinkedIn and you subscribe to us on the YouTube channel, and you'll get notified of when we deliver all things intelligent automation through the rapidMATION Live channel. In the meantime, if you've got any questions or comments or would like to ask any questions, drop us a note at hello@rapidmation.com. All right, that's it for today's session. Looking forward to speaking to you soon and hope you've enjoyed.